Consider this. You undergo a brain surgery in which the two hemispheres of your brain are disconnected. The corpus callosum, a bundle of neural fibers connecting the left and the right hemispheres of your brain, is removed. 10 to 12 hours later, when you wake up from the surgery, you have two minds. Crazy, right? Is this even possible? In today's video, we'll dive deep into the human brain to know how each part of our left and right brain influences our actions and our behaviors. The two hemispheres of the human brain, as we all know, are basically symmetrical. The right hemisphere directs movement on the left side of the body, while the left hemisphere governs the right side of the body. However, the two halves do not work in isolation, as a thick band of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum connects the two sides. The popular theory is that people are either left-brained or right-brained, meaning that one side of their brain is more dominant than the other. Which means that if you're one of those analytical and methodical types, you're most likely to be left-brained. On the other hand, if you're all artsy and creative, you're more certainly to be right-brained. The simple thing we need to do to establish this theory fully is to pierce through the brain of a musician and a mathematician to know the difference. But since we're not living in the Middle Ages, such kind of an experiment is out of the question. The reality is not so simple, and like so much things in neuroscience, far from fully understood. One simple way to find out is to perform a CT scan, MRI scan, and even an autopsy on the brain of a mathematician and compare it to the brain of an artist. It's unlikely that you'd find much difference. And if you did the same for 1,000 mathematicians and artists, it's unlikely that any clear pattern of difference in brain structure would emerge. We're not the only animals with the handedness trait. Researchers watching wild chimps found they favor their left hands twice as often when fishing for termites. And the same was largely true for chimpanzees raised in captivity. But results were different for nut cracking. For that task, which requires sheer force instead of the fine motor skills needed for extracting insects, wild chimps were much more likely to favor their right hands. Early studies of the two hemispheric asymmetries often relied on split-brain patients who had their corpus callosum removed as a treatment to severe epilepsy. In such studies, information could be provided to a single hemisphere at a time by presenting people with input to one side of the visual field, since the right visual field is processed by the left hemisphere and vice versa. Now let's get back to your brain that we split in two halves in the beginning of this video. After the surgery, if someone puts an orange in your right hand, which goes to your left-speaking hemisphere, you'd say it's an orange. You can look at it and confirm. But if the same orange is put on your left hand, you'd say, I don't know what this is. The left hand and the right hemisphere knows an orange, but it doesn't have the speech center, so it can't convey verbally that it's an orange that you're holding. So it confirms that there is a completely different mental system. The left hemisphere controls your speech and tells you all about the world. The right half, on the other hand, processes all the information, does all sorts of calculations, but it can't speak about it. It can only respond non-verbally by pointing towards a direction to indicate that it has understood the question. It can even distinguish the fact that orange is edible and can eat it, but it cannot speak about it. Splitting the corpus callosum was first used as a treatment for severe epilepsy in the 1940s. The procedure was done to limit the electrical signal of the seizure to one side of the brain. So we can see that there's something deeply compelling about the clear-cut right brain versus left brain classification, or is that just my left hemisphere speaking? We have good reasons to be skeptic. Specifically, how and why the hemispheres differ remains a mystery. For example, most of the time the left hemisphere is more important for speaking, but that isn't true in absolutely everyone. As they are remarkably similar physically, it is very critical to study the hemispheric differences. Research shows that concrete and abstract words are processed differently in the brain. For example, the word book. In Green Book, refers to something concrete, something for which it is easy to create a mental image. However, when something like interesting book is given, people usually think about the content of the book rather than its physical form. So the same word has now become more abstract in meaning. There are, of course, differences in how people learn and think, what they like and what they are like, but some of these differences may arise because of individual differences in how the hemispheres are organized and which hemisphere tends to be used in a particular circumstance. So many factors can come into since the hemispheres do operate somewhat independently of each other. The question of how their independent processing is eventually combined to take the control of processing for a particular task is something that scientists are only beginning to understand. However, it is safe to say that for the most part, we all use both sides of the brain almost all the time. If you guys are new to the channel, then I do encourage you to smash that subscribe button and turn on all notifications to never miss a single video on our channel, as well as giving this video a big thumbs up by slapping that like button below. We make content on a wide range of subjects, and you can even suggest us the topics you want us to cover in the comment section below.